Ada's real employer, Ada Wong's mysterious employer. Throughout the Resident Evil series, Ada claims to work for the organization, but evidence suggests this shadowy group might actually be the original Umbrella Corporation founders, operating under a new name. In Resident Evil 2, Ada retrieves the G-Virus sample. In Resident Evil 4, she's ordered to obtain a Las Plagas sample, but deliberately sends a fake. In Resident Evil 6, she protects specific research while destroying others. Her actions consistently align with someone who has deep knowledge of Umbrella's original research and wants to control which bioweapons exist. When Wesker confronts her about betrayal, she shows no fear, suggesting her employers have equal or greater power than him. The organization never appears directly, never makes public moves, and operates exactly like Umbrella did in its early days. If the original Umbrella founders faked their deaths and rebuilt in secret, Ada's seemingly contradictory missions across decades suddenly make perfect sense. She's not playing all sides, she's been working for the same people since the beginning, protecting the legacy of progenitor research while eliminating competitors. Spencer's test subjects. The S.T.A.R.S. selection process. Oswell Spencer didn't randomly choose Raccoon City for the mansion incident. Evidence suggests he specifically selected S.T.A.R.S. members based on genetic compatibility with viral infections years before the outbreak. The survival rate for T-virus exposure is approximately 13%, yet both Alpha and Bravo teams had multiple survivors. Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, and Albert Wesker all survived encounters that should have killed them. Spencer's files in Resident Evil 5 reveal his obsession with finding the chosen ones who could achieve evolution through viruses. He founded Umbrella in 1968 and had 30 years to identify candidates. The Spencer Mansion was designed as a testing ground, not just a research facility. Every trap, every bioweapon placement, every accident was calculated. Rebecca survived exposure to numerous BOBUs despite being a rookie. Jill developed perfect T-virus antibodies after Nemesis infection. Chris showed resistance to multiple viral strains across his career. The odds of this happening naturally are astronomical. Spencer wasn't testing the bioweapons in the mansion, he was testing the people, identifying who among them possessed the genetic traits he spent his life searching for. The S.T.A.R.S. members weren't unlucky victims. They were pre-selected candidates in an experiment that began long before they entered that mansion. Jill's antibodies, Jill Valentine's unique immunity. After surviving Nemesis's T-virus infection in Resident Evil 3, Jill developed perfect antibodies that could neutralize the virus completely. The vaccine she received wasn't a standard cure, but a prototype developed specifically for her genetic structure by Carlos Oliveira and Nikolai Genovaev. In Resident Evil 5, Wesker specifically targets Jill for the P-30 mind control device, despite having access to dozens of other operatives. He calls her the key to everything, and keeps her under his direct control for years. The P-30 device required a host with specific antibodies to function properly, and only Jill's biology was compatible. After her rescue, she's conspicuously absent from major BSAA operations, despite being one of their most experienced agents. The organization keeps her identity classified and limits her field exposure. This suggests they're protecting something valuable. Her antibodies don't just cure the T-virus. They might provide immunity to all progenitor-based viruses, making her blood the most valuable biological resource in the world. Every organization that discovers what Jill survived wants to capture her, study her, or eliminate her as a threat to their bioweapons programs. Her antibodies could theoretically create a universal vaccine that would end the bioweapons black market overnight. That's why she keeps getting targeted, mind-controlled, and pulled back into conflicts. Jill Valentine isn't just a survivor, she's the cure, and everyone knows it. HUNK's survival rate, the fourth survivor's impossible record. HUNK has survived every single mission across 30 years of operations, earning the nickname Grim Reaper, because everyone around him dies while he walks away. In Resident Evil 2, he's the only Umbrella Security Service member to escape Raccoon City with the G-Virus sample. In Resident Evil, Operation Raccoon City, he survives encounters that kill entire squads of enhanced operatives. He shows no fear, no hesitation, and moves through bow-infested zones like he's immune to panic and injury. Standard human reflexes can't explain his performance. The theory suggests HUNK volunteered for low-level viral enhancement that doesn't cause mutation, but dramatically increases healing, reflexes, and pain tolerance. Umbrella wouldn't send completely normal humans on their most critical extractions. They'd want soldiers who could survive bow encounters without turning into monsters themselves. HUNK never removes his mask in any appearance, hiding potential signs of enhancement. He never speaks about his past, his training, or how he joined USS. His blood type and medical records are completely classified, even within Umbrella's leaked documents. When other characters take massive damage, they show injury. When HUNK takes hits, he keeps moving at full speed. The USS likely had an entire program creating soldiers like HUNK, using controlled viral integration that enhanced combat ability without the grotesque mutations. Most subjects probably died or lost control. HUNK represents the one success story, the perfect balance between human and bioweapon that Umbrella always wanted to achieve. Ashford cover-up. The Ashford twins' real relationship. Alfred and Alexia Ashford's story in Resident Evil Code Veronica has a disturbing possibility that explains the game's inconsistencies. Alfred claims Alexia put herself in cryogenic sleep for 15 years after injecting the T. Veronica virus, but evidence suggests Alexia actually died during that initial experiment as a child. Alfred, unable to accept his sister's death and his own inferiority, created an elaborate delusion where he kept her body preserved and developed a split personality to become her. Throughout the game, Alfred constantly references Alexia as if she's alive and aware. He speaks to empty chairs, prepares rooms for her return, and becomes violently protective of her cryochamber. When Alexia finally awakens, her personality is eerily similar to Alfred's behavior patterns. Her speech mimics his mannerisms, and she shows knowledge of events that occurred during her supposed 15-year sleep. The T. Veronica virus requires an incredibly specific host to avoid immediate mutation and death. Alexia was 12 years old when she injected herself. The likelihood of a child surviving what kills adult researchers is nearly zero. Alfred's cross-dressing isn't just eccentricity, but practice for his impersonation. He studied her voice, her movements, her personality, and when the time came, he injected himself with T. Veronica and became the sister he lost. The Alexia that Claire and Chris fight isn't the original genius. It's Alfred's idealized version of her, filtered through 15 years of madness and obsession, piloting a body he preserved and then inhabited. The real Alexia Ashford died at age 12, and what remained was her brother's desperate attempt to bring her back by becoming her. Las Plagas cure. The incomplete removal. Leon Kennedy and Ashley Graham received emergency surgery to remove their Las Plagas parasites in Resident Evil 4, but evidence suggests the procedure wasn't entirely successful. Luis Serra, the researcher who developed the removal process, died before completing his work, leaving his notes incomplete. The surgery removes the visible parasite, but might leave microscopic plaga cells dormant in the nervous system. Leon experiences headaches and hearing issues in supplementary materials set after RE4. Ashley never appears in another main series game, despite being the president's daughter and having direct BOW experience that would make her valuable to organizations like the BSAA or TerraSave. The government might have quarantined her indefinitely, monitoring for signs of plaga reemergence. Las Plagas operates differently than viruses, integrating into the host's nervous system rather than rewriting DNA. Complete removal would require extracting every microscopic fragment, which is nearly impossible with 2004 medical technology. Leon and Ashley never appear in the same game again, never reference each other, and their storylines are kept deliberately separate. This could be intentional containment protocol. If dormant plaga cells remain, stress or injury could trigger regrowth years later. The parasite might even pass through reproduction, creating second-generation carriers. Leon's increasingly reckless behavior in later games, throwing himself into suicide missions, could reflect someone who knows he's a ticking time bomb. Ashley's complete disappearance from the series, despite her connection to the most powerful man in America, suggests someone decided she's too dangerous to remain in public life. By the way, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Resident Evil theories, I create content like this all the time. Subscribing would really help out. Village timeline placement. When Resident Evil Village actually occurs. Capcom states the game takes place in 2021, but evidence in the Megamycete suggests it might have existed during earlier outbreaks, potentially placing the village events much earlier in the timeline. The Megamycete stores consciousness and memories of everyone it absorbs, and when Ethan connects to it, he experiences visions that include imagery eerily similar to Umbrella facilities and early virus research. Miranda discovered the Megamycete in 1919, giving her over a century to influence bioweapons development. She was obsessed with resurrection and creating the perfect vessel for her daughter. Spencer studied under Miranda before founding Umbrella, and the progenitor virus shares disturbing similarities with mold infection, including mutation, regeneration, and consciousness transfer. The village's isolation could hide its true place in history. If Miranda had operatives outside the village, she could have influenced Umbrella's research from the beginning, steering Spencer toward fungal viral hybrids without him realizing. The Duke, an impossibly knowledgeable merchant who appears throughout the village, never explains how he knows everything about everyone. He could be a mold construct created by Miranda to observe and manipulate events across decades. Ethan's ability to survive dismemberment makes sense if he died at the Baker house in 2017, but his lack of decay over 4 years suggests mold physiology operates outside normal time. If the megamycete exists across multiple time periods simultaneously through absorbed consciousness, then Village's events might not be linear. The game could be showing us Miranda's century-long plan finally concluding, with Ethan experiencing echoes of events that technically happened decades apart. Luis's true discovery, what Luis Serra really found. In Resident Evil 4, Luis Serra is killed by Saddler before revealing his complete research on Las Plagas, but evidence suggests he discovered something revolutionary that Saddler couldn't allow the world to know. Luis worked for Umbrella Europe before joining Los Illuminados, giving him expertise in both viral and parasitic bioweapons. His notes mention he found a way to free them from the chains, which most interpret as the removal process, but his excitement when discussing this discovery suggests something more significant than a simple cure. The theory proposes Luis discovered Las Plagas can grant the parasite's benefits, enhanced strength and regeneration, without surrendering control to a master plaga. He found the neurological frequency that allows communication without domination. This would make plagas the perfect human enhancement, all the benefits of bioweapons without losing free will. Saddler killed Luis not because he created a removal process, but because he created an improvement process that would make Saddler's control obsolete. If humans could integrate plagas willingly and keep their minds, they wouldn't need a cult leader. They'd be independently enhanced super soldiers. Luis's research notes were never fully recovered. Ada takes some documents, but she doesn't retrieve everything. The organization likely spent years searching for Luis's complete work, understanding its implications. Leon and Ashley's removal might have actually been Luis's enhancement process in reverse, which explains why it worked so quickly despite being developed in a remote castle with limited equipment. Luis Serra wasn't just a scientist helping the good guys. He was on the verge of revolutionizing human enhancement entirely, and he died protecting research that could change everything about bioweapons development. Miranda's infiltration. Mother Miranda's influence on Umbrella. Evidence suggests Miranda didn't just teach Spencer about viruses, she actively infiltrated Umbrella Corporation to steer research toward her goals of resurrection and consciousness transfer. Spencer studied under Miranda in the early 1960s, learning about the megamycete and mold before founding Umbrella in 1968, but Miranda, obsessed with resurrecting her daughter Eva, wouldn't just share knowledge and let Spencer leave. She'd want to maintain control over research that could achieve her goal. Umbrella's early research focused heavily on regeneration and consciousness preservation, which aligns perfectly with Miranda's objectives rather than Spencer's stated goal of human evolution. The progenitor virus, found in West Africa, shares regenerative properties with mold infection, despite being geographically distant from Miranda's village. This suggests either cross-contamination or that Miranda directed Umbrella towards specific research sites. Several Umbrella researchers in early documents have Eastern European surnames and backgrounds consistent with Miranda's region. She could have sent followers to work inside Umbrella, reporting back and influencing research directions without Spencer realizing. The T virus, G virus, and other variants all focus on mutation and regeneration, but none achieve consciousness transfer until decades later. This delay suggests Miranda's operatives kept Umbrella from discovering the key breakthrough, preserving her advantage. When Spencer finally achieved consciousness transfer research in Resident Evil 5, he's immediately betrayed and killed by Wesker. If Miranda had influence over Wesker through the Wesker Project, this could be her eliminating Spencer once he outlived his usefulness. Mother Miranda spent a century perfecting her plan. She wouldn't leave Umbrella's massive resources and research completely outside her control. Simmons's obsession. Derek Simmons's true motivation. In Resident Evil 6, Derek Simmons appears obsessed with Ada Wong to the point of creating a clone, but evidence suggests his fixation wasn't romantic but scientific. Simmons was the national security advisor with access to classified bioweapons data from every major outbreak. He orchestrated the Raccoon City destruction and had complete files on every survivor. His clone project required enormous resources and years of research, suggesting something more valuable than personal obsession drove him. The theory proposes Ada Wong possesses unique genetics that make her immune to all known BW infections. Throughout the series, Ada walks through outbreak zones without protective gear, handles virus samples directly, and survives encounters that should infect her. In Resident Evil 2, she's inside the lab during G-virus dispersal. In Resident Evil 4, she's covered in Plaga-infected blood. In Resident Evil 6, she survives enhanced C-virus exposure. She never shows infection symptoms, never requires treatment, never displays concern about contamination. Simmons discovered this immunity in government files and became obsessed with replicating it. If he could clone Ada and harvest her immunity factors, he could create the ultimate bioweapon, something that couldn't be stopped by its own payload. His love for Ada was actually reverence for her genetic perfection, viewing her as the next step in human evolution. The clone Carla Radames gained Ada's appearance, but not her immunity, which explains why C-virus affected her differently. Simmons wasn't trying to replace Ada romantically, he was trying to weaponize her, and his obsession stemmed from realizing she possessed something more valuable than any virus or parasite: natural immunity to biological warfare itself. Blue Umbrella's leadership. Who really runs the new Umbrella? In Resident Evil 7 and Village, Blue Umbrella appears as a reformed corporation, helping the BSAA fight bioterrorism, but evidence suggests it's secretly run by surviving Umbrella scientists who want to undo their mistakes. Chris Redfield works with Blue Umbrella, despite spending years destroying the original corporation. This dramatic shift suggests either he's been deceived, or he knows something that justifies his cooperation. Blue Umbrella has access to original Umbrella technology, research data, and operational procedures that should have been destroyed in Raccoon City. They know where old facilities are located, how to counter specific BOWs, and possess antiviral compounds that were never publicly released. This knowledge suggests leadership with direct ties to original Umbrella operations. Several former Umbrella scientists, including those who opposed weaponization, were never accounted for after the corporation collapsed. Researchers who wanted to use viruses for medicine rather than warfare could have survived, taken control of remaining assets, and rebuilt as Blue Umbrella. The name itself suggests a deliberate contrast: blue versus red, good versus evil, but using the same corporate identity. They're not hiding their Umbrella connection, but redefining it. Chris's cooperation makes sense if Blue Umbrella showed him proof that its leadership consists of scientists he'd already investigated and cleared, people who were trapped in Umbrella's structure but never committed atrocities. The BSAA's willingness to work with them suggests governmental approval, which would only come if Blue Umbrella provided evidence of legitimate reformation. If the organization is genuinely run by scientists seeking redemption, it explains their advanced technology, their inside knowledge, and why heroes like Chris would risk their reputations working alongside the Umbrella name. If you found these theories compelling, consider subscribing so you catch every new video. Thanks for watching.